What if I told you that every single word you speak is a brick? The average person speaks about 16,000 words a day. That's enough bricks to build a house every single week. Now look around at your life, at your relationships, your career, and your own sense of peace. Are you living in a palace of connection and opportunity? Or are you trapped in a prison of misunderstanding and chaos? The terrifying truth is, most of us are building these prisons brick by brick, conversation by conversation, without ever realizing we're the architects of our own confinement. But I'm about to give you the blueprint, not just to stop building walls, but to start designing an empire. Every conversation you have is a construction site. Every thought you entertain is the blueprint for what you're about to build. We spend so much time decorating our lives on the outside, but we live inside the structures we build with our language. Some people talk constantly, throwing words around like sand, and wonder why their lives feel like they're built on unstable ground. Others think deeply but say nothing, and their silence becomes a fortress that no one can enter. To communicate with power, you must become a conscious builder. You have to learn to think with the precision of an architect before you speak, so that your words reflect your deepest clarity, not just your passing noise. Because your speech is never just an expression of your reality, it is the creation of it. Before we go any further, I want you to think about the last conversation that left you feeling drained or misunderstood. Got it? What if I told you it wasn't just what was said, but the faulty blueprint in your own mind that led to the flawed design? Comment blueprint down below if you're ready to stop building chaotic rooms and start designing conversations that build empires. The secret to all of this begins long before you open your mouth. It starts in the silent recording studio of your mind. Your self-talk is the rehearsal for every word you will ever speak to the world. If you're in a dialogue, the track you play on repeat for yourself is filled with static, doubt, and criticism, then no amount of eloquent language on the outside can hide that frequency. People don't just hear your words, they feel the energy of the original recording. They feel the uncertainty. They feel the lack of conviction. This is why we've all met someone who says all the right things, but something just feels off. Their energy doesn't match their words. I once sat in a high-stakes corporate boardroom, the kind where egos are loud and everyone's fighting for airtime. And in the corner sat a junior analyst who hadn't said a word for almost an hour. She was practically invisible. The CEO was about to make a multi-million-dollar decision when she finally spoke. She said maybe 3 sentences, calm, precise, undeniable. The entire room went dead silent. The frantic energy just stopped. It wasn't the volume of her voice that commanded the room. It was the density of her thought. Her words landed with the weight of 1,000 noisy ones, because they weren't reactions. They were conclusions. She didn't speak to fill the silence. She spoke to give it meaning. In that moment, it became crystal clear. True influence doesn't come from speaking more. It comes from thinking better. This is the critical difference between overthinking and clear thinking. Overthinking is having 50 browser tabs open in your mind at once. Your mental RAM is overloaded. Your thoughts are scattered and nothing loads properly. The result? Your speech buffers, lags, and eventually crashes. Clear thinking is like having just one window open with a high-speed connection. It's focused, efficient, and delivers the message with precision. The goal is to close the unnecessary tabs before you speak, and every word that comes from this place of clarity carries an energy that is undeniable. There's an old proverb that says, "Be sure your words are sweet, for one day you may have to eat them." But it's deeper than that. Your language is a boomerang. Every careless complaint, every sharp criticism, every word spoken in anger doesn't just disappear. It circles back and shapes the world that responds to you. This isn't mysticism. It's social physics. A defensive tone creates a defensive reality. A compassionate tone invites an open one. This is why the foundation of all intelligent communication is empathy. True intelligence is as much emotional as it is intellectual. It's the ability to sense what another person is feeling and to infuse your words with care. When your logic is warmed by compassion, your communication becomes wise, persuasive, and deeply felt. You no longer need to convince. You simply connect. So if your words are the bricks you use to build your reality, what is the first law of architectural integrity? It's this: you must inspect every single brick before you lay it. Words are free, but how you use them can cost you everything. A careless word can shatter trust that took years to build. One thoughtless sentence can start a fire, but a mindful word, a single well-placed brick, can build a bridge over the deepest divide. The greatest communicators understand that their power begins not in the speaking, but in the silence that precedes it. It begins with a system of quality control. Imagine that before any thought can become a spoken word, it must pass through 3 ancient, powerful gates. These aren't obstacles. They are guardians, designed to turn your raw, unfiltered noise into wisdom. The first is the gate of truth. This gate challenges you to ask, is what I'm about to say genuinely true? And this isn't just about avoiding lies. It's about questioning the stories you tell yourself. Is this an objective fact, or is it just my interpretation? Is this the whole truth, or a convenient piece of it that serves my ego? Think about that angry comment you were about to fire off online. Is it based on the full picture, or a 15-second clip designed to trigger you? The gate of truth demands you become a detective of your own mind, not just a broadcaster of your fleeting emotions. If your words pass through that first gate, they arrive at the second, the gate of kindness. This gate asks a simple but profound question. Is this truth necessary to say, and am I delivering it in a way it can be received? We often use brutal honesty as an excuse for verbal carelessness. But you can deliver a difficult message with a surgeon's scalpel or a sledgehammer. Both can break through, but one is designed to heal, and the other is designed to shatter. Kindness isn't about being nice or avoiding conflict. It's about having the wisdom to package your truth in a way that helps, rather than harms. Finally, your words must face the gate of necessity. In a world that screams for your constant contribution, every opinion, every reaction, every thought, this gate asks the most radical question of all. Does this silence need to be broken? Is what I'm about to say a genuine upgrade to the conversation? Or is it just another notification in an already overloaded world? So many people speak just to fill space, their words falling like dead leaves, briefly noticed, then instantly forgotten. But the smart communicator understands that words are not decoration. They are direction. They only speak when it adds value, when it adds clarity, or when it adds connection. Which of these 3 gates is the hardest for you to get your words through? Is it truth, kindness, or necessity? Drop your answer in the comments below. Be honest. This is a space for real growth. This process reminds me of the story of a young, hot-headed warrior who came to a wise master, complaining that no one understood him. "They twist my words," he fumed. "They don't hear my heart." The master listened patiently, then calmly poured 2 cups of tea. He handed one to the warrior and said, "You fire your words like arrows in a storm, hoping they hit a target you can't even see. Stop shooting. First, calm the storm inside of you. Then feel the weight of the arrow in your hand. Understand its purpose. Only then should you draw the bow." That pause, that moment of intention, is the difference between a weapon and a tool. I saw this play out perfectly in a tech negotiation. On one side, a fast-talking VP who interrupted, dominated, and filled every second of silence with jargon. On the other, the founder of the company we were acquiring. She was calm and thoughtful. She listened more than she spoke. And when she did speak, it was after a noticeable pause. By the end of the meeting, who do you think commanded the respect of the room? Not the guy with the most words, but the woman whose words had the most weight. His words were cheap and disposable. Hers were an investment. That pause wasn't weakness or hesitation. It was a silent declaration of power. I'm not reacting to your pressure. I'm responding from my center. That is the difference between noise and influence. But here's the secret that most people miss. Mastering these three gates isn't really about controlling what you say to others. It's about mastering the voice you listen to inside your own head. Because that's where the real battle for powerful communication is won or lost, long before you ever open your mouth. What if I told you that you've been in a single, non-stop conversation for your entire life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you've never had a break? It is, without a doubt, the most important and influential conversation you will ever have, and yet most of us are not even conscious participants in it. I'm talking about the constant narrator, the voice inside your head. That voice is the ghostwriter of your reality. It lays the emotional foundation for every word you speak, every action you take, and every opportunity you pursue or run away from. But here's the catch. You didn't hire this narrator. It was assembled for you. It's a Frankenstein's monster of outdated programming, a mashup of your parents' warnings, a critical teacher's feedback from the 3rd grade, the sting of your first heartbreak, and the echo of every past failure. This narrator's primary job is to keep you safe by repeating old familiar stories. The problem is, in the modern world, safe usually means small. The world doesn't respond to the words you say. It responds to the energy you project. And that energy is a direct broadcast of what your inner narrator believes to be true. I once worked with a brilliant marketing executive. Let's call her Sarah. She was a genius on paper. Her strategies were flawless. Her data was undeniable. But the moment she had to present to the board, it was like a switch flipped. Her throat would tighten. Her hands would start to shake, and her powerful voice would shrink to a thin, reedy whisper. She was broadcasting pure terror, and it completely undermined her brilliant ideas. I asked her one day, "Sarah, what is the very last thing you say to yourself before you walk into that room?" She looked down, almost ashamed, and whispered, "I say, don't screw this up." I explained to her, that's not a pep talk. That's a command to your nervous system to focus on the exact thing you're afraid of. You are literally programming your body for failure. What if just once you tried a different script? What if you told yourself, "I am here to share something of value. My purpose is to serve the people in this room." The next time she presented, she tried it. The fear didn't magically vanish. Her hands still trembled a little. But her energy had fundamentally shifted. She was no longer performing out of a fear of judgment. She was sharing from a place of purpose, and for the first time the board didn't just hear her data, they felt her conviction. She hadn't changed her presentation, she had changed her inner broadcast. Take a second and just listen. What is your inner narrator saying about you right now? Is it a critic, a coach, or a constant worrier? Let me know in the comments which one shows up most often for you. There's no judgment here, only awareness. The moment you become aware of this narrator, you gain the power to give it a language upgrade. This isn't about lying to yourself or chanting empty affirmations. This is the conscious psychological practice of cognitive reframing. Your brain is a supercomputer, and your self-talk is its operating code. If you're running on outdated, buggy code filled with self-criticism, your performance will always be slow and prone to crashing. Upgrading your code is about intentionally shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So instead of letting the old code run, you consciously replace it. The old code says, "I'm terrible at this." The upgraded code says, "I'm new to this and I'm learning." The old code says, "I failed." The upgraded code says, "That attempt gave me valuable data on what doesn't work. Time to pivot." The old code says, "I always mess this up." The upgraded code says, "This is an old pattern that I now have the awareness to rewrite." This shift from self-criticism to self-compassion changes the entire emotional vibration of your speech. The most profound truth you can ever grasp is this: you are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears it. Think of your mind as a radio. That negative, critical narrator is just one station, and it's been playing the greatest hits of your past fears on a loop for years. But you are not the radio station. You are the one holding the radio. You have the power to turn the dial. At first, the old station will be loud and staticky, but with conscious practice, you can tune into a new frequency, a station that broadcasts a clear signal of calm, capability, and self-respect. Once you start to rewrite your inner script, the next step is to master the most critical moment in any conversation, that tiny, invisible space between what someone says to you and how you choose to respond. And in that space lies a power that most people never even know they have. So you've started to upgrade the voice inside your head, but the real test comes when the outside world attacks. A critical comment from your boss, a passive-aggressive remark from a family member, an unexpected crisis that lands in your lap. In that moment, there is a tiny invisible space, a fraction of a second between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. And inside that space lies a power that most people never even know they have. It's the difference between being a puppet of your circumstances and becoming the master of your reality. It is the sacred pause. Let's be clear, our brains are not naturally designed for this pause. We are wired for survival, which for thousands of years meant reacting instantly. See a threat in the bushes, run. Hear an aggressive sound, fight. We are finely tuned reaction machines. That's our factory setting. And that ancient wiring still runs our lives today. When your partner says that thing that always gets under your skin, the machine whirs to life. When you get that email that feels like an attack, the machine goes into overdrive. In those moments, you don't consciously speak. You spill. Your words are just the hot, unfiltered exhaust fumes of your emotional engine. You're not in control. Your programming is. But the most powerful and respected people on Earth have deliberately overwritten this programming. They understand that what made us survive in the jungle makes us fail in the boardroom, in our relationships, and in our own quest for peace. They have mastered the art of the pause. Think of a triggering comment like a live grenade that has just been tossed into your hands. The reaction machine screams, "Throw it back! Get rid of it! Say something cutting right now." But the conscious responder operates like a bomb disposal expert. They don't throw it back. They take a breath. They create space. They look at the grenade, assess the wiring, the raw emotion, the history, the context, and only when they have a clear understanding do they calmly choose which wire to cut. That deliberate pause doesn't just prevent an explosion. It diffuses the entire situation. Your power is not in how fast you react. It's in how skillfully you respond. Think about the last time you reacted and later regretted it. That sinking feeling in your stomach when you realize you spoke too soon or from a place of anger. We've all been there. If you're ready to stop being the reaction machine and start becoming the bomb disposal expert of your conversations, type pause in the comments. I once coached a startup founder, a brilliant guy named Alex, who was infamous for his impulsive Slack messages. If a team member made a mistake, he'd launch a digital missile, a long, aggressive paragraph that would terrorize the recipient and inject fear into the entire company culture. He told himself he was being radically transparent, but really he was just being emotionally reckless. So I gave him one non-negotiable rule, the 15-minute rule. When you feel that rage start to bubble up, you are forbidden from responding for 15 minutes. Get up from your desk, walk around the block, write the angry message in a private draft if you have to, but you are not allowed to hit send. The first week was agony for him, but then a transformation began. He told me that by the time the 15 minutes were up, the emotional storm had passed. He'd look back at his drafted message and be horrified. He saw the ego, the anger, and the imprecision. He'd delete it and write something calm, clear, and constructive instead. His leadership fundamentally changed. He went from being the source of his team's anxiety to the source of its stability. He didn't suppress his anger. He simply stopped letting it be the CEO of his communication. This sacred pause is not about becoming a robot and pretending you don't feel anything. Your emotion is vital data, Anger often tells you a boundary has been crossed. Fear is telling you something important needs protection. The pause gives you a moment to act as a translator. Instead of just shouting the raw foreign data of "I'm angry," how you can translate it into a clear, useful message. When that deadline was missed, I felt frustrated because I'm worried about our commitment to the client. One is an attack. The other is an invitation to solve a problem together. But mastering your own reaction is only half the battle. To truly connect with and influence others, you need to understand the invisible emotional blueprint that governs every single person you speak to. Because if you don't speak to their emotions first, your logic will never even get a chance to be heard. So you've learned to master the pause, that sacred space between trigger and response. But what do you do in that space? You prepare to meet the most powerful gatekeeper in all of human interaction. Every great communicator, from world leaders to legendary CEOs, understands a fundamental, unshakable truth about people. We are not thinking machines that occasionally feel. We are feeling machines that happen to think. Emotion is in the driver's seat. Logic is just the GPS it glances at to justify the direction it was already going. If you don't understand this, you will fail to connect every single time. Think of it this way. Every person you speak to has an invisible emotional firewall protecting their mind. Your words, your brilliant ideas, your flawless data, that's all incoming information. And that firewall runs on a very simple code. If the emotional frequency of the incoming data doesn't feel safe, respectful or resonant, it gets blocked instantly. It does not matter how smart you are or how right you are. If your tone communicates judgment, your energy feels aggressive, or your presence feels dismissive, their firewall will go up, and your message will be dead on arrival. Connection is the password that grants you access. Without it, you are just talking to a wall. I worked with a manager, let's call him David, whose team was brilliant but completely disengaged. He'd present these perfectly logical, data-driven arguments for why they needed to hit their targets, but you could feel the dead air in the room. His energy, his tone, and his very presence screamed, "You are all failing to meet my expectations." And his team's firewall instantly went up. Their energy screaming back, "We just feel like cogs in your machine." I told him, "David, your logic is a 10 out of 10, but you are failing the firewall test. Your team feels your frustration, not your belief in them." I gave him a new strategy. Next meeting, before you say a single word about performance, find something genuinely true to appreciate. He started the next meeting by saying, "Before we dive in, I was looking at the late-night work you all put in on the Miller account, and I am genuinely grateful for that level of dedication. Thank you." The shift in the room was like a chemical reaction. Shoulders relaxed. Defenses lowered. People leaned in. For the first time, they weren't just his employees. They were his partners on a mission. He didn't change his logical points. He simply found the right emotional password to get them through the firewall. Think of someone you find it difficult to communicate with. Is it possible you've been trying to send them logical data when their emotional firewall is up? What's one word that describes the emotion you're probably broadcasting to them? Drop it in the comments. Let's see if we can find a new password. In any interaction, you have a choice. You can be a thermometer, passively reflecting the emotional temperature of the room, or you can be the thermostat. You can consciously set the temperature. If you walk into a conversation carrying the frantic heat of anxiety and pressure, the whole room will start to sweat. But if you enter with the cool, calm air of a centered and compassionate presence, you will regulate the entire atmosphere. People don't just hear your words. They absorb your frequency. Your calm becomes their calm. Your respect earns their respect. Mastering your own emotional state before you speak is the highest form of influence. This is why the most skilled doctors, when delivering the worst possible news, spend more time preparing their tone than their terminology. They know that the words, "There is nothing more we can do," can be delivered with the cold, clinical finality of a slamming door, or with a gentle, compassionate presence that says, "We are here with you in this pain." The words are the same, but the emotional footprint they leave behind is worlds apart. One leaves a scar of abandonment, the other, a memory of being held and seen in a moment of crisis. But what if the key to creating this connection, to finding the right password for anyone's emotional firewall, isn't about what you say at all? What if the most powerful communication skill you can ever develop is the art of not speaking? So you've learned to manage the emotional atmosphere. But what if I told you that the key to connection, the secret to finding the right password for anyone's emotional firewall, isn't about what you say at all? In a world that is obsessed with the art of expression, how to speak, how to persuade, how to go viral, we have completely forgotten the most influential communication skill of all, the art of true listening. And it is a superpower that almost no one has. Most of us go through our lives merely hearing. Hearing is the passive biological process of sound waves hitting your eardrum. It's the background noise of a conversation. But listening is an active, full-contact sport. It's the difference between a security camera that passively records data and a brilliant detective who is actively scanning the scene for clues. The subtle shift in tone, the hesitation in a pause, the flicker of pain behind a forced smile. Hearing collects words. Deep listening deciphers the unspoken truth. Here's a fundamental secret about the human ego. It doesn't actually need you to agree with it. What it desperately craves more than praise or validation is the feeling of being truly seen and heard. Deep listening is the most profound form of respect you can offer another human being. When you silence your own inner monologue and offer someone your undivided presence, you are silently communicating, "For this moment, your world is more important than my own. Your reality matters." In our age of constant distraction, that kind of attention is a rare and priceless gift, and it builds trust and psychological safety faster than anything else on earth. There's a story about a brilliant therapist known for her long, deep silences. A new client, a fast-talking executive accustomed to getting quick answers, grew frustrated. "I'm paying you all this money and you barely say anything. I need you to tell me what to do," he said, exasperated. The therapist smiled gently and replied, "My job isn't to give you a map. My job is to hold up a mirror. When you speak into a truly silent, attentive space, you don't hear me. For the first time, you begin to hear yourself. And the wisest answers you will ever find are waiting in that echo." Deep listening doesn't just give you information about the other person. It creates the sacred space where people can find their own clarity. Let's be honest, most of us aren't really listening. We're just reloading. We're waiting for the other person to take a breath so we can fire off our next point. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your listening skills? 1 being just reloading, and 10 being a human mirror. Drop your number in the comments. This isn't about judgment. It's about honest self-assessment. If you want to transform your listening skills overnight, you can start with a powerful technique used by FBI hostage negotiators. It's called mirroring, but it's more than just repeating words like a parrot. It's about echoing the emotion and the essence of what the other person is saying. Simple phrases like, "So it sounds like you're feeling completely overwhelmed by this," or "It seems like the core issue for you is a lack of respect." This echo doesn't mean you agree. It simply proves you're listening. It is a magic key that instantly disarms defensiveness and makes the other person feel understood. Then you follow it up with a simple drill-down question like, "Tell me more about that." You're not just having a conversation, you're guiding a discovery. When you master this, you discover that the secret to speaking smarter isn't speaking more. It's listening better. When you truly listen, the words you finally do speak are infused with so much understanding and precision that they have 10 times the impact. But even with perfect listening, your message can still fall flat if the instrument you use to deliver it is out of tune. I'm talking about your voice itself, the tone, the rhythm, and the invisible energy that can either make your words magnetic or completely forgettable. So you've learned to become a master listener, creating a space of deep connection. But eventually, you have to speak. And when you do, your message can still fall flat if the instrument you use to deliver it is out of tune. I'm talking about your voice itself, the tone, the rhythm, and the invisible energy that can either make your words magnetic or completely forgettable. Think about the most charismatic and influential people you've ever heard speak. What was it about them? It likely wasn't their vocabulary. It was their sound. Your voice is not just a tool for conveying information. It is the instrument your soul plays for the world, and most of us are playing it completely out of tune. Imagine your words are just the sheet music, the notes on the page. But the music itself, the part that moves people, the part that gives them chills, is your tone, your rhythm, and your energy. You can have the most brilliant symphony written on the page, but if it's played on a cheap, out-of-tune violin, the genius will be lost. The same words, "I believe in this," can sound like a hopeful question or an unshakable declaration, all depending on the quality of the instrument they are played on. We've been taught that vocal power means being loud, but that's a fundamental misunderstanding of acoustics. A shout is just brute force. It's a high-amplitude, low-quality sound that often creates resistance in the listener. True vocal power is about resonance. Resonance is when your voice vibrates not just in your throat, but also in your chest, your body, and the space around you. A resonant voice feels full, grounded, and certain. It doesn't need to be loud because it has weight. It's the difference between the sharp crack of a firecracker and a deep bass note that you feel in your bones. I once coached a trial lawyer, a brilliant woman with a photographic memory for case law. Her arguments were technically perfect, but she kept losing juries. Her mentor pulled her aside after a devastating loss and said, "You sound like you're trying to convince the jury of the facts. You need to make them believe in the truth." That night, she stopped rehearsing her lines for perfection. Instead, she focused on her breath. She stood in front of a mirror and spoke about the case not from her head, but from her gut, from a place of deep conviction for her client. The next day in court, her voice was completely different. It was slower, lower, and it resonated with an unshakable certainty. For the first time, the jury didn't just see a lawyer, they felt a champion. She wasn't just speaking, she was resonating. The next day in court, her voice was completely different. It was slower, lower, and it resonated with an unshakable certainty. For the first time, the jury didn't just see a lawyer, they felt a champion. She wasn't just speaking, she was resonating. Quick exercise. Record yourself saying this sentence out loud right now. "I am confident in my ability to handle this." Now listen back. Don't judge the words, judge the music. Does it sound resonant and certain or thin and hesitant? Comment resonance below if you're ready to learn how to tune your instrument. You can start tuning your instrument right now with 3 simple adjustments. First, power up your breath. Your breath is the power source for your voice. Most people speak from their throat, using shallow, anxious breaths that create a thin, strained sound. A powerful voice is powered from the diaphragm. Before you speak, take a slow breath in through your nose and feel your belly expand, not just your chest. This is your fuel tank. A full tank gives your voice a rich, stable foundation. Second, unlock your posture. Your body is the instrument's casing. If you're hunched over, you are literally compressing your own sound. Stand or sit tall. Pull your shoulders back and lift your chest. Imagine a string pulling the crown of your head toward the ceiling. This doesn't just look more confident. It physically opens up your resonating chambers and gives your voice an instant boost in depth and authority. Third, master the pause. Silence is part of the music. Speaking too quickly signals anxiety and makes your words feel cheap. A well-placed pause is a mark of confidence. It's a vocal punctuation mark that tells your listener, what I just said was important. Let it sink in. Pauses give your words gravity and your listener time to feel, not just hear. But what if the words themselves, the sheet music, are cluttered and confusing? You can have a perfectly tuned instrument, but if the message isn't crystal clear, you're just playing beautiful noise. The next step is to master the art of verbal elegance. How to speak less but say infinitely more. So you've learned to tune your instrument and your voice to create a powerful resonance. But you can have a perfectly tuned Stradivarius violin, and if the sheet music is a chaotic, cluttered mess, all you're going to create is beautiful noise. The next step is to master the art of the music itself, verbal elegance. It's the counterintuitive secret to powerful communication. To say infinitely more, you must learn to speak less. The most intelligent people I have ever met don't try to sound smart. They strive to be understood. In a world drowning in complexity and jargon, radical simplicity is the new superpower. Clarity is power. Every conversation you have contains a signal-to-noise ratio. The signal is your core message, the one essential idea you want to transfer from your mind to theirs. The noise is everything else. The unnecessary details, the repetitive points, the filler words, and the confusing jargon. Many people mistakenly believe that to make their signal stronger, they need to add more words. But what they're actually doing is adding more noise. The more noise you add, the harder it is for your listener's brain to find the signal. Their mind gets exhausted trying to sort through the clutter, and eventually it just tunes out. Powerful communicators are obsessed with maximizing their signal-to-noise ratio. They are ruthless editors of their own words. I remember watching a tech conference where a PhD from a prestigious university got on stage and spent 20 minutes explaining his new AI model. He used so much dense academic jargon that he put half the room to sleep. The very next speaker was a college dropout founder whose company was already using that same AI to solve a real-world problem. He explained the entire concept in 2 minutes, using a simple analogy about a team of super smart, lightning-fast librarians. The entire room lit up with understanding. The first speaker knew his subject, but the second one truly understood it. And that is the ultimate test of mastery. Not whether you can make something sound complex, but whether you can make it feel profoundly simple. What's one word or phrase of jargon from your industry or job that you absolutely hate? That one word that just adds noise instead of signal. Post it in the comments below, and let's create the ultimate jargon-free dictionary. If you want to become a master of clarity, you can start with this simple, powerful toolkit. First, use the one-sentence rule. Before any important conversation, a meeting, a presentation, or even a difficult talk with a partner, force yourself to answer this question. What is the one single sentence I need them to remember? If you can't boil your core message down to one clear, powerful sentence, you are not ready to have the conversation. That one sentence is your North Star. Every other word you say should exist only to serve it. Second, replace vague language with concrete images. Our brains don't think in abstractions. They think in pictures. Vague corporate speak like, "We need to leverage our synergies to optimize outcomes," creates zero mental images and has zero impact. Be specific. Instead of saying, "We need to improve," man, say, Our goal is to reduce customer response time from 24 hours to 4 hours. One is fog. The other is a target. Third, kill the weasel words. Weasel words are the filler phrases we use when we're afraid to be direct. Phrases like, I just wanted to maybe ask, or it's sort of like, or I kind of feel that. These words are like static that weakens your signal. Be kind but be direct. Instead of, I was just hoping you could maybe help with this, try, could you help me with this? Directness isn't rude. It's a form of respect for the other person's time and attention. Clarity is not about dumbing things down. It's about elevating your message so that it can be received with effortless understanding. It is an act of kindness to your listener. But even with a perfectly clear message, delivered with a resonant voice, there is one final invisible element that determines whether you are merely a good speaker or a truly commanding presence. It's the one quality that can hold an entire room in silence without you ever needing to say a word. So you have a resonant voice and a crystal clear message, but there is one final invisible element that determines whether you are merely a good speaker or a truly commanding one. It's the one quality that can hold an entire room in silence without you ever needing to say a word. Have you ever been in a meeting when someone walks in and without any announcement the entire energy of the room just shifts? They don't have to be the loudest or even the most important person there, but they have a kind of gravity. People just notice them. That quality isn't charm or charisma in the way we usually think of it. It's presence. And in our world of perpetual distraction, it is the ultimate currency of influence. We are living in the attention economy. Your phone, your notifications, your endless to-do list, everything is fighting a relentless war for a slice of your focus. As a result, most people are living fragmented lives. Their body is physically in the meeting, but their mind is lost in their inbox. They are nodding while you speak, but they're really just rehearsing what they want to say next. They have become ghosts in their own lives. This is why so many of our conversations feel empty and transactional. It's why you can talk to someone for an hour and walk away feeling completely disconnected. Because of this, when you choose to offer someone your full, undivided presence, you are giving them the rarest, most valuable, and most respectful gift on earth, your focused attention. A person with true presence is like a lighthouse in a storm. They aren't trying to shout over the wind and the waves. They aren't chasing after the ships, begging them to notice their light. They are simply anchored, solid, and emitting a clear, steady beam. Their power doesn't come from frantic action. It comes from their grounded stillness. The ships, lost and tossed about in the chaotic sea, are naturally drawn to that source of stability and clarity. When you are fully present, you stop chasing attention because you become the lighthouse that attention naturally seeks. I'll never forget a university professor I had. The lecture hall before he arrived was pure chaos, 300 students talking, texting, and making a racket. But the moment he walked onto the stage, a wave of silence would ripple across the room. He never once raised his voice or banged on the podium. He would simply stand there for about 10 seconds in complete stillness, make eye contact with a few students, and take a single, deep breath. His stillness was so profound that it absorbed all the chaotic energy in the room. His presence silently communicated, "I am here fully, and I invite you to be here with me." That kind of grounded energy is infinitely more powerful than any demand for attention ever could be. Here's a challenge for your very next conversation today. Put your phone away. Not just in your pocket, but completely out of sight. And for just 5 minutes, try to be a lighthouse. Don't worry about what to say next. Just listen, be still, and offer your full undivided attention. I'm curious what you'll notice. After you try it, come back here and comment lighthouse if you felt a shift in the quality of the conversation. There's a huge myth that to have presence, you need to perform. That you need to be on, charming, witty, and constantly impressive. That is not presence. That is performance anxiety. The moment you start worrying, how do I look? What do they think of me? You have abandoned the present moment. You are no longer with the other person. You are trapped in your own head, judging your own performance. The paradox is that true, authentic presence is what impresses people the most. It's the quiet courage to be fully and unapologetically there with someone, without needing to prove a single thing. When you can combine this grounded presence with a clear message and a resonant voice, you arrive at the final stage of masterful communication. This is where you move beyond just being heard and understood, and you learn how to speak in a way that truly transforms people from the inside out. So we've journeyed through the architecture of your words, the sacred pause, the emotional firewalls, the superpower of listening, the resonance of your voice, the elegance of clarity, and the gravity of presence. But all of these are just the tools. The final step is to understand the energy that powers them all. This is where communication ceases to be a skill and becomes an art. This is where you learn to speak not just to the mind, but directly to the soul. Every person has a unique, authentic frequency, a state where your thoughts, your words, your energy, and your intentions are all in perfect alignment. It is the place where you are most powerful, most real, and most resonant. Most of us spend our lives trying to broadcast on someone else's frequency. We try to sound like a speaker we admire or an executive we report to. But that just creates static and a message that feels hollow. The ultimate goal of transformative communication is to find, trust, and broadcast from your own authentic frequency. Because truth carries a vibration that cannot be faked, and people feel it instantly. This frequency is built on 3 pillars. The first is confidence, but not the loud, arrogant kind. True confidence is self-trust made audible. It is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you no longer need to compare yourself to anyone else. It's not the absence of fear. It's the courage to act alongside your fear, knowing that your purpose is more important than your comfort. When you trust yourself, you stop seeking the world's approval, and that lack of neediness is what gives your words their weight. The second pillar is storytelling. Data can inform the brain, but a story is the only thing that can rewire a soul. A great story is an act of teleportation. You are literally transferring an experience from your heart directly into theirs. But here is the secret the best storytellers know. People don't connect with your polished success story. They connect with your struggle, your vulnerability, and your messy, imperfect transformation. Your failures become bridges. Your scars are what make your story relatable and your message unforgettable. Don't just show them your highlight reel. Have the courage to show them the footage from the cutting room floor. The final pillar that holds it all together is empathy. Confidence without empathy is just arrogance. Storytelling without empathy is just performance. Authenticity without empathy is just a raw, unfiltered ego. Empathy is the bridge that connects your authentic truth to another person's heart. It's the compassionate energy that says, I'm not here to prove that I'm right. I am here to connect with what is real. When you stand on these 3 pillars, you are ready to make a conscious choice. Every time you speak, you can ask yourself, am I speaking to be seen, or am I speaking to serve? Am I speaking to get applause, or am I speaking to create an awakening? The voice that seeks applause is fleeting and will be forgotten. But the voice that seeks to awaken, to remind people of their own power, their own light, and their own truth, that is the voice that leaves a legacy. Your communication ceases to be a performance. It becomes an act of service. So here is the final truth. You are not missing anything. You are not broken. You are not late. The tools you need to become a powerful, transformative communicator are already inside you. The only difference from this moment forward is the intention you bring to every word you speak. So take a breath. Tune into your authentic frequency. Speak with a clarity that respects others and a presence that honors the moment. And above all, speak not from your ego but from your essence. Because your voice was never meant to sound like anyone else's. It was meant to sound like you. And that is the most powerful voice in the world. But what is the power source for this authentic frequency we've spoken of? It's not a natural talent or some unteachable charisma. It is the quiet, unshakable, and buildable energy of confidence. And true confidence is perhaps the most misunderstood quality in communication. It is not the belief that you are better than everyone else. It is the quiet internal knowledge that you no longer need to compare yourself to anyone else. It is self-trust made audible. It doesn't shout. It radiates. The biggest myth about confidence is that it is the absence of fear, but it's not. Confidence is the courage to act alongside your fear, because you've decided your purpose is more important than your comfort. Fear is the turbulence you feel when you're growing. Confidence is the pilot who keeps their hands steady and continues to fly the plane. When you truly trust yourself, you stop needing the world's approval. And paradoxically, that lack of neediness is what earns you the world's respect. I once worked with a speaker who trembled every time she stood on stage. She told me, "I'm terrified they will see how nervous I am." I replied, "Then let them see it. Let them see your fear, but make sure they also see your purpose." The next day, she walked onto that stage, her voice trembling slightly, her hands not perfectly still, but her heart was on fire with a message she had to share, and the audience was captivated. They didn't connect with a flawless performance. They connected with her courageous authenticity. That is confidence in its purest form, the willingness to be real, not perfect. This strength is built from the inside out. It starts with preparation, knowing your subject so well that the knowledge lives in your body, not just your mind. And it is anchored in your body. When you straighten your posture, breathe deeply into your belly and hold steady, soft eye contact, your body sends a powerful signal to your brain and to everyone in the room. I am grounded. I belong here. Once you are grounded in your own confidence, you unlock the ability to step outside of yourself and into the world of another. This is the art of empathy, the most potent tool for dissolving conflict, overcoming resistance, and building unbreakable bonds. Communication without empathy is just empty sound. It's a broadcast without a receiver. Empathy is the bridge that connects your authentic truth to another person's heart. It is the ability to see the world through their eyes, listen through their ears, and feel with their heart. It does not mean you have to agree with them. It simply means you are willing to honor their reality as real and valid for them. You are offering the sacred space of understanding. This is why empathy is a language of strength, not weakness. I once consulted with a brilliant manager who was feared by his team. His feedback was always logically sound, but his tone was cold and clinical. I asked him one question: do you care more about being right or about being effective? He admitted that his goal was to be right. That's why they don't follow you, I explained. People don't commit to logic. They commit to leaders who make them feel respected and understood. He started his next team meeting, not with what was wrong, but with, "I know you all worked hard on this. Let's figure out together how we can make it even stronger." That single empathetic shift changed everything. His words, which once felt like judgments, now felt like a collaboration. Empathy did what authority never could. It built loyalty. This requires you to listen past the words being spoken. It is the ability to hear the pain behind the anger, the fear behind the control, or the exhaustion behind the silence. It's emotional X-ray vision that allows you to respond to the human, not just their behavior. You can have all the confidence and empathy in the world, but if your message is delivered as a dry list of facts, it will be forgotten by tomorrow. To make your message unforgettable, to make it stick in the hearts and minds of your listeners, you have to wrap it in the most ancient and powerful human technology ever invented: a story. Our brains are not wired for bullet points. They are wired for narrative. Data informs the brain, but stories rewire the soul. When you tell a story, you are not just conveying information. You are inviting the listener to live an experience inside their own mind. Their brain patterns literally begin to mirror yours. It is an act of teleportation. You are transferring an experience from your heart directly into theirs. But here is the storyteller's secret. People don't connect with your perfect, polished success story. They connect with your struggle, your vulnerability, and your messy, imperfect transformation. I once coached a CEO who was very private and resisted storytelling. He said, "I deal in facts, not feelings." But during a critical company meeting, I encouraged him to tell his employees why he started the business. He hesitated, then said softly, "My father lost his job when I was 15. I'll never forget the shame in his eyes. I wanted to build a company that gave people the security my family never had." The entire atmosphere in the room changed. They no longer saw a boss. They saw a son with a mission. That one story communicated the soul of the company more powerfully than 1,000 mission statements ever could. Your failures become bridges. Your scars are what make your story relatable and your message immortal. Don't just show people your highlight reel. Have the courage to show them the footage from the cutting room floor. When all these pieces come together, your confidence, your empathy, your story, they create something greater than the sum of their parts. They create an energy, and true influence has nothing to do with manipulation or pressure. It has everything to do with the energy you carry into a room. People may follow your logic, but they will commit to your energy. Your energy introduces you before you speak, and it echoes long after your words are gone. It's a frequency that communicates clarity, conviction, and compassion, or their opposites: confusion, doubt, and indifference. This energy is contagious. You are constantly transmitting your inner state. You cannot inspire confidence if you are radiating anxiety. You cannot create a feeling of calm if you are projecting chaos. This is why the most influential people are masters of their own emotional state. I once witnessed a negotiation between two executives. One entered aggressively, with a dominating energy, trying to win through force. The other entered calmly, with an open posture and a steady, centered tone. The more aggressive the first became, the more grounded the second remained. Eventually, the aggressor's energy broke against the other's calm. He softened his tone, mirroring her state. Influence, not intimidation, won the day. Before you enter any important conversation, perform a simple ritual. Ask yourself, what is the energy I want to leave behind? Then take 3 deep breaths and consciously embody that state. When your intention is to uplift, inspire, or serve, your energy feels light and magnetic. People can feel the difference. So what is the final destination of this journey? It's the point where you stop seeing communication as a tool to get what you want, and you start seeing it as a gift you offer to the world. This is the final evolution, from a good communicator to a transformative one. This is the voice that speaks to awaken, not just to impress. It understands that every word you speak is a seed you are planting in the world. You can plant seeds of doubt, fear, and division, or you can plant seeds of peace, potential, and connection. The transformative voice understands this sacred responsibility. There's a powerful story of a nurse who worked in a cancer ward. She used to avoid telling patients difficult news because she feared breaking their spirit. But one day an elderly patient took her hand and said, "Don't protect me from the truth. Walk me through it." From that moment on, she changed her approach. She began to speak the truth with profound grace and compassion, and she found that instead of fear, people found a strange sense of peace. Her voice didn't avoid pain. It helped transform it into meaning. This is the highest form of communication. It doesn't seek applause. It seeks awakening. It reminds people of their own power, their own light, and their own truth. Your communication ceases to be a performance. It becomes an act of service, and that is the final truth. You are not missing anything. You are not broken. The tools you need are already within you. The only difference from this moment on is the intention you bring to every word. So take a breath. Tune into your authentic frequency. Speak with a clarity that respects, a presence that honors, and a story that connects. And above all, speak not from your ego, but from your essence. Because your voice was never meant to sound like anyone else's. It was meant to sound like you. And that is the most powerful voice the world is waiting to hear.